and welcome back to the Apex. Just give us your thoughts on tonight and sitting there and watching the action close up.
That was a really exciting card. From start to finish, the matches were amazing. Achilles kicked it off against Andy Valera, high-paced match, and the stalling calls were, at times, in my opinion, a bit much, but it definitely did force the action to be pushed. I think that was one of the most exciting jiu-jitsu cards I've ever witnessed as far as action goes, and just level of talent overall.
How much of that excitement would you attribute to the new rule set that was brought in tonight?
Well, you have to attribute, obviously to the athletes, but a lot to the new rule set as well, just because, in the past with the EBI rules, we've seen a lot of stalling until overtime, and now those negatives are a curveball because you could be killing someone, but if you get a negative, and even if you passed, 4 times, took the guys back, and you have a negative, you're still losing. So I think that, it's definitely an interesting rule set, and I think that obviously, as Fight Pass Invitational goes on, they're looking to make improvements every show, and I'm sure that they'll have some feedback and some changes for the next show to make it even more exciting. Was
it fun for you to sit there and see this rule set play out and be like, oh, I can strategize now, I can see how this plays out, so when I compete under these, I'll already know which way to go?
Yeah, it was, because this is the first time they did this rule set, and I've competed under ADCC rules before, but these are a little bit different, and the stalling calls are a lot more intense. So it was kind of like a combination between like a quintet with the very strict stalling calls and ADCC rules, all kind of thrown into like a submission-only rule set in the beginning. So it was definitely interesting, and it made for a very exciting event.
Last time you were here, it happened. It happened again. Nicky Rod called you out. This time he's throwing 50K on the table and saying, you throw 50K and we'll compete for 100 grand. Does any part of that interest you?
No. Nicky Rod and that whole team make their career off sound bites for me, so no comment. Not interested in that at all.
That's fair enough. And then in that case, I'd like to ask you about something else outside of tonight. I haven't got to see you since you trained with John Jones. I'm curious, as someone who's quite cerebral and thought of as a very good thinker and tactician, what's it like training with another man who is thought like that? What was the biggest takeaway you took from training with John Jones?
With John, he's very similar to GSP, to George, in the sense that he's not the world's best wrestler. He's not the best jiu-jitsu guy. He's not the best striker. But his ability to put it all together is just on a different level. And even just grappling, like his ability to intuitively change his game plan from the start of the roll to the end of the roll, or from round to round, is incredibly impressive. So the most impressive thing, obviously, is his ability to put everything together, but his ability to adapt as the match goes on and change the game plan per what you're doing. And I was very, very impressed with him just as a person and as an athlete, all around.
Yeah, I mean, this might be a weird thing to ask about John Jones, but was he almost better than you were expecting?
Yeah, for sure. You always go in and you don't know what to expect when you're training with athletes from other sports. Obviously, he doesn't focus on jiu-jitsu, but his wrestling is top notch. His jiu-jitsu is tough, and he's good from everywhere. And he learns incredibly quick. Most of the time, you see guys, young athletes usually learn, a lot faster. It's like the old saying, you can't teach old dogs new tricks. But he's nearing 40 now, and everything I taught him, if I taught him 5 things and he picked up 3, he instantly put those 3 things into his game, and he was like hitting them 100 times better by the time from the start of the week to the end of the week. So he was a really impressive person to be around.
Last one for me, and probably the most important question. No more silver. The beard, the hair's gone. What happened?
No more silver. So I was going to do something where I dressed as Santa for my last match, but I got hurt. And then once that ended, I was like, I had like this once a year. I did it last ADCC, and I was like, you know what? I have to do one time a year where I shave my hair off, and I stopped getting comments of people telling me I look like I'm 75 years old. And then so we haven't had any more of those comments yet so far, but it was overdue. And my hair was getting super long. It was getting pulled in training. My beard's like getting pulled out during strangle attempts. So I was like, you know what? It's time to go. And now I'm rocking this atrocious mustache now.
Well, you said it, not me, but we hear about guys with beards when they finally make that shave. Did you look in the mirror and go, oh, fuck, I should have done that?
Well, it's funny, for the first like 3 days, every time I walk by a mirror, I like have to double take. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's what I look like now. Or when I go to scratch my face and I get ready for the beard, to feel my beard and it's not there, and then I just hit skin and I'm like, oh yeah, I don't have a beard anymore. So, but now I'm used to it. It's been like a week, 10 days or so, and I'm getting acclimated now.
And we're keeping the mustache?
For a little while. I had this thing. I know there's a picture somewhere of my dad with a Corvette posing with a mustache. So I want to find a picture of that and recreate it with the same clothes. So until I do that, I think I'm going to keep the mustache, at least. That's the plan right now.
Gordon. I just saw your Instagram post. Would you mind to give me your thoughts about Felipe Pena's performance and the main event as a total?
Yeah, so I just went on a little tirade about Pena. So basically, Pena's excuse for, him quitting in our last match was the fact that his best friend died. And that excuse was not legitimate, number one, because if he was too emotionally distraught to compete, he would have just not competed. And I offered to reschedule the match, which he didn't want to do. But today, he literally got broken inside 15 minutes. You can always tell when Pena breaks, he has the same exact sequence of events. His body language falls apart, then he starts bullying you, then he complains to the referee and rests, and then he just totally quits. And so he totally quit after he was complaining for 5 minutes to the referee, getting negatives. And then the second Marigali took his back, he just instantly gave up. The strangle wasn't even on. It was like he just got the fingers underneath his neck and he immediately tapped. And so the excuse that, oh, my best friend died and that's why I quit. It's like, no, you're just a quitter. If you can't bully the guy, you just give up. And that's been proven fact tonight.
He is the only guy who has ever tapped you as a black belt. And you guys fought 3 times, he won twice, and you were, I guess at the beginning of the year, you guys were supposed to fight again. Do you still want to fight him to prove, since he's the only guy who tapped you, do you still want to beat him maybe 4 or 5 times?
Yeah, for me, I'm not really going to be comfortable until we have 5 matches, because then it will be 3-2, me. I don't want to have a tie score. I definitely don't want to have a losing score like I have right now. So, me and Pena definitely have to have a few more matches. And it's an interesting thing because no matter how many times Pena loses, he's just losing all the time now, people are still going to think that he can beat me because he's just as beaten me before 7 years ago. So it's always a match that people are going to watch regardless of how bad Pena is and how much he's losing now. So that match is a match that can just be made forever, even though Pena just can't beat anybody anymore.
Just 2 more questions. Would you mind to tell me what's the biggest difference from the last fight you guys had from now? Since how did you evolve and how did he evolve from there?
Well, I don't really see anything in his game that's been different or evolved in the last 3 or 4 years. He's just physically bigger every time, and he just gets tired a little bit faster, and he's stronger. For the first few minutes. As far as me, after I fought him before ADCC, so it's been over a year now. That since we've competed, I have a completely new, guard passing system. I have, new things that I'm doing. I'm just not a totally different athlete, but I'm far more evolved than I was when we fought the first time. And, we saw today that the second you turn up the passing pressure on him, Marigali has good passing pressure, and everyone's like, oh, he couldn't pass his guard in 45 minutes. Well, no, it was a no time limit match, so I was just cooking him underneath me. But Marigali just completely broke him, passing him in under 15 minutes today. So. The longer he waits to compete against me, the longer that match takes to happen, the worse it's going to be for him.
Perfect. Last question for me. Since you brought the thing about his best friend Leandro Loa passed away, I guess the day before the last match you guys had, I would like to know your side of the story. I don't think I've ever heard, because Felipe says that you were asking for a lot of things about the match, and how was the negotiation? He tried to cancel. I would like to hear your side of this story.
Yeah, so I like to sleep late the day of my tournament because I like to do a big 18 to 24 hour fast before I compete because my stomach is messed up, so I'm always nauseous. So I was sleeping until I slept until 4 p.m. and the event was coming up, and they had to wake me up and hey, Pena wants to pull out. So I woke up 3 hours before the match, and I hear that Pena wants to pull out. So I'm trying to figure out what's going on. So what I said was very simple. I said, listen, we're professionals. If you are too emotionally distraught to compete, I understand that. We can reschedule, fly back to Brazil, do the funeral, do whatever you have to do, and that's it. And I messaged Pena. I'm like, hey, you can do whatever you want, but if we're going to compete, let's put on a show. That's what Leandro would want. But I told Flo, I'm like, listen, if he wants to reschedule, we can reschedule, no problem. I'm like, but if he wants to compete, then be a professional and compete on the agreed upon terms, because Pena always tries to change the rule set. So we had a contract, which I had to pay lawyers to make a contract, and we agreed upon a contract, and it was my $100,000 versus his $10,000. The only way I could actually get him to compete was to put up $100,000 of my own dollars against $10,000 of his dollars in a 10-to-1 bet odds match on a no time limit match, which was specifically stated in the contract. So Pena wanted to change the match to 30 minutes. And I'm like, we change the rules every time we compete, and we have a contract for a no time limit match. I'm like, we're not doing this like 2 hours before the match. I'm like, if you want to compete, it doesn't matter if you compete for 10 minutes or for an hour. If you're okay enough to compete, you should be able to compete on the agreed upon terms. So my thing was simple. I was like, listen, either reschedule the match, no problem. You know, I've had to reschedule matches, obviously. I'm always falling apart. I was sick for the match that we were supposed to have. I just got hurt this match, so I understand it happens. But if you're going to compete, compete according to what we agreed upon. And, that was my thing. And Penna went into, this and that. He's a bad person. He's lying and this. It's like, no, dude, you said you weren't going to compete. You were too sad to compete. And then Flo offered you more money. And then you're like, oh, okay, I can compete. So basically you just leveraged your friend's death to extort money out of Flo by saying you were too sad to compete until they offered you more money. Like, it's just a joke.
I've got one just in front. Mason called you out as well. You were originally supposed to fight with him tonight. Is that something that still interests you? And what did you think of his performance?
Well, I mean, yeah, everybody wants a piece of daddy. Yeah, Mason I like. Mason's like an American legend. He's doing great things for the sport. And, he's always been nice to me. So I have no problem with Mason. And, unlike the B team guys who just need to have my name in their mouth because they don't win, and they need to build a career off of my sound bites. I haven't mentioned them in 6 months. Every single podcast that they do, every post that they make is trying to get a reaction out of me. So that's just, I don't care about that anymore. But Mason has never said anything bad about me. He's always just wanted to compete against the best guys. And he went out and he dominated, his opponent from B team tonight. And he was very impressive. He hit a takedown, passed the guard, pretty easily, solidified pins, moved through pins, and then eventually finished with the Kimura. So that was about as perfect of a performance as you can have for Mason. And that's a match that I've been trying to make. We've been trying to make for a long time, and logistically, it just hasn't really added up. So I'm really excited to get out there in 2024 and make that match happen.
Thank you.
Hola, muchachos.
Bonjour.
Bonjour, comment ça va?
Ça va bien, merci, et toi?
Oh, OK, tu parles vraiment le français, toi?
Nope, that's all I had.
I thought he was playing, but he really does speak.
George, obviously you got to sit there in the best seats in the house. I'm curious, from that seat, how did you feel the night went, and what was your impression of the contest we saw tonight?
It's amazing. It's it's great that UFC put on a platform, an event to showcase the best grapplers in the world, because grappling, submission wrestling, jiu-jitsu, whatever you call it, it's a specialty in itself. It's very different than mixed martial art, and it's great. I mean, I'm very happy to participate to this, trying to bring the sport to a bigger audience.
You mentioned the word participate. You were meant to be competing tonight. When you were there, was it a little bit like, damn, I should be in there, I should be rolling?
No, because I hurt my shoulder, and everything happened for a reason. I think I was, I'm 42 years old, and when I was, it's like mentally I can't disconnect from the fact that when I'm competing, I become someone else. I'm extremely competitive, and sometimes I forgot that I'm 42 years old, and I don't give myself enough rest, and that's why I think I partially tear my labrum, my subscap, and my rotator cuff, but my shoulder is getting better, and we'll see how it goes,
The intention is still to compete in grappling?
We'll see how I recuperate from it, because it depends on how it's going to heal, and I'm afraid that I'm afraid sometimes it leaves a scar, you know, or a chronic problem, and I don't want that to happen. I want to make sure I heal 100% right before getting back into high-level training.
Yeah. The talk was it would be you and old friend Nick Diaz if it was to happen. If the healing goes okay and you feel comfortable, would you like to just rebook that and go ahead with that?
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, things is constantly moving. I know Nick, I guess he's probably looking for a comeback in MMA too. I mean, the universe is constantly moving, you know, and I'm aware that I cannot put everything on pause. Someone cannot put everything on pause and waiting, you know, and I have to do another test because there is a big deficit between the strength of my two shoulders where I get hurt, and now I'm gonna make another test to see if that deficit gap have shrink, and if it has shrink, that's mean I probably will avoid a surgery. If it did not shrink, I will probably need a surgery. So there's still a lot of question mark, but to tell you subjectively how I feel it's getting better every day. That's how I feel.
Last one for me. Now, you know this sport is an interesting one, the world of MMA, and sometimes these rumors can start. You know, recently Dana White said that there's a super fight in 2024 coming up. Can you tell us if you would be a part of that super fight?
Absolutely not.
You promise?
I promise you. I
swear on dinosaurs.
No. I always told myself that I would not fight in a cage after the age of 40. You know, I don't say I will never compete in any combat sport event, but I fight in a cage professionally in a serious thing for my legacy. I will not do it. There is something that I care more about my legacy is my health, and I think it's sad because a lot of athletes in combat sport, actually most of them, retire too late, and I think it's a shame a little bit because they tarnish not only their legacy, they tarnish their health. I think it's important for an athlete to prepare their retirement early before they retire, so when they retire, they know where to go, you know, to do something out of their life.
Thank you.
Just one off of that question. Since you're not going to be in that super fight, do you have any idea of what kind of super fight you'd like to see?
I would like to see. Oh, it's a good question. For UFC 300, right? Well, there's a lot of variable. I mean, there's a lot of guys I like to watch fight. Obviously, John Jones is one of my favorite. He got hurt. It's unfortunate. I like to see Usman, Shimaev. I like to see Adesanya. I like to see Makachev. McGregor is another one I would like. Volkanovski is another one. There's a lot of guys I love to see fights. Maybe doing super fights in between them in something like that. I'm sure UFC have a better idea than I do.
Put them all in the cage and see who comes out alive?
A Royal Rumble. Why not?
Thank you.
Hey, George. There was also a report that there was talks of Khabib and you competing, but Khabib had priced himself out. Craig Jones said that he was asking for $5 million. Can you confirm, was there ever conversation between you and Khabib to...
No, it was only speculation. I never had any formal conversation about it. I'm sure it's a fantasy that a lot of people had because we never had to fight in mixed martial arts, so they thought maybe, they're going to compete in grappling. But no, I never had any formal offers or anything like this. You know, the thing is, if I may, I train not because I have an upcoming fight. I train because that's the way I like to live. You know, it's very therapeutic for me to be in good shape. It affects not only my health but also my confidence. It makes me a better person. You know what I mean? And people sometimes they see athletes after they retire, they get fat, they get out of shape, but that's never going to be my case because until the day I can do it, I will always try to be as in the best shape I can. But that doesn't mean I train because I'm preparing a fight. You know, I know that's the thing that most people make the mistake. They think I'm getting ready for something, and I don't. I really just train because I like to be in good shape. You know, it makes me a better person. It makes me feel better in my own skin.
Who wins next week between Leon Edwards and Colby Covington?
Well, I'm a little bit biased because I'm friend with Leon Edwards, and I sent him a text yesterday. I wish him the best of luck. I mean, it's going to be a tough fight, though. Covington definitely got all the skills to win that fight, but I believe Leon will win. I believe Leon is better.
And finally, for me, obviously, since you left the sport, Canada's been kind of like it's kind of dried up, and there isn't a big Canada star. I guess, is there anybody that you see right now that can maybe be the next, obviously not the next GSP because there's only one GSP, but like someone next from Canada that can kind of step out?
I think they could be better fighters than me out there. I was just very fortunate that when I was competing, I had the chance to have incredible trainers, but also incredible training partners. I had David Loiseau, Patrick Côté, Dennis Kang, Rory McDonald. So I had a freaking all-star team with me at the time. I was not alone. So we were all training and exchanging ideas and technique. And it feels sometimes that now in Canada, it's sad because they all train themselves in different gyms and they don't exchange in between themselves. And in Canada, it's a big country, but we're not a lot of people. So in order to be competitive against the world, we need to train with each other, and it's something that I believe it's missing right now in Canada. I believe that's what I had at the time. I reached out to all the elite fighter in the country at the time, and I even though some of them didn't like each other, I tell them, I say, you don't need to like each other. Let's train at least once a week, to meet every Friday to spar. And it was competitive, very competitive, but it was not malicious. And I think that's one of the things that we did that helped us get better and be competitive in the international level. And it's something I think maybe it's missing in Canada right now. Everybody wants to do things for themselves, and they see their neighbors as their competitor. They are competitors, but in a way, if you mix it up, it will makes you better, because the benefits that you both going to gain from that training is something that the outside will not get. You know what I mean? And that's my belief. That's one of the things that it could be improved in Canada.
Thank you.
Just one for me. You were talking about legacy, and you talk about wanting to see Jones fight. Jones, Dana says he wants Jones to sit back and wait for the Stipe fight. They put on an interim belt, and you got the interim guy wanting to fight Jones for it. What do you think is right next for Jones? Would you like to see him hold out for Stipe, or what are your thoughts on interim belts and all that, and what do you think should be next?
Whoever is going to fight next, I'm just a big fan. I love to see the best guy fighting, because when they fight, I like to watch them, because they all have something special, and I can learn from them, Even though I don't compete anymore, I like to watch them to learn. In martial art, it's a constant evolution. My physical ability might diminish now because I'm past my physical prime, but my knowledge will always increase. And one way that you can increase your knowledge is by watching someone perform. And I like to watch John Jones because he's just the best at what he does. I like to watch Usman, Shimaev. I like to watch them, to watch all the best guys, so I can learn from them.
But do you think that it's right for him to wait until that fight against Stipe, or would you like to see the division move forward and see the interim belt get?
Well, it depends on which perspective you're asking me. If you ask me from the perspective of a fan, I would like to see him fight whoever's on top. If you ask me from the perspective of John Jones, what is best for him, you have to ask the question: what does he have to gain, and the pros and cons, the risk versus the reward. What is best for him. Because the career of an athlete, it's not a straight line. Sometimes it comes down to the decision that he makes. And some guys were very talented, maybe more talented than others, but they didn't make the right decision for their career, so they crash, Because one loss can affect your entire legacy, one mistake. And it can happen in a blink of an eye, very fast. So it's very important that you make the right decision.
Thanks for coming back here.
George, right here. You talked about legacy and also the importance of it, but more importantly, your health. Going back to your shoulder, obviously shoulder injuries are very tough. For you, being very competitive, how hard is it to not only try to prove to yourself like, oh, I still got it and I can still get better, but at the same time not trying to compromise your health, like with the shoulder and everything, because the shoulders is, to some people, they may not realize like a labral tear like that, or dealing with the rotator cuff is tough like that.
Yeah, that's one thing. I mean, it's easy to say, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But once you put your mind into it and it's official, something switch in my mind and I become someone else because I'm extremely competitive. And that thing that I'm talking about is also the same thing that makes me have a lot of success because I was at that switch. And if I don't have that switch, I feel I'm not going to perform as well as I do. But now my life has changed since when I was in my prime. I'm not the same person I was. I have other responsibility. So I need to assess. I need to reassess and take the good decision. You know, once I get better and 100%.
Obviously, the training changes after you start going from pro, and now you're just in this retired stage. For you, how have you changed not only your mentality but how you approach your training daily?
I still to this day always train for mixed martial art because that's what I do. Of course, if I will compete in grappling, I would say a few months ahead of time, I will specialize my training more for grappling. If I would go in striking, I would specialize into striking. That's hypothetically what I would do. But if you talk about my weekly routine, I do all kinds of martial arts, as much as striking and grappling. You know, for me, it's important to be versatile.
Gotcha. Thank you.
All right, Mason. Well, congratulations. How are you feeling after a performance like that?
Yeah, I felt great. I felt like I followed the game plan and got the job done. So, yeah, a performance like that, a flawless performance. So what's there not to be happy about, you know?
I know you talked to me a little bit about this yesterday, that you were a little concerned, I don't know if that's the right word, concerned, but about your opponent having this underdog kind of aura where he always kind of performs a little bit better as an underdog. I mean, obviously that didn't happen today, but were you surprised at all by the performance from him?
I think that in order for him to have that that underdog performance, his opponent has to overlook him, and I didn't do that. From the very beginning, I was really focused and dialed in. I wasn't just lazy and confident. I showed him a lot of respect, and because of that, I was able to have a good performance and show my level. But if I would have just went in there like, oh, I'm too good for this guy, da 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 da, that's when he, could have potentially caught me with something.
So did the fight go the way you expected it to go?
Yeah, I think so. I thought I was going to be able to tire him out a little bit with the hand fighting, and he's really explosive, and especially in the first few minutes, so that's why I was just being really cautious in the first few minutes. And then eventually I felt that he was starting to get tired from exerting so much energy, and then at that point I wanted to start looking for the submission.
What did you think of the new rule set?
Good and bad. Of course, anytime you have a new rule set, there's always going to be some things that are confusing. In my head, there wasn't a lot of clarity on the penalty for guard pulling, just because at the rules meeting they said that the person could be penalized that pulled guard, or the person on top could also be penalized if they disengaged from the guard. So that was a little confusing. And then I do think that the stalling penalties were a little fast. We saw some guys getting like 8, 9, 10 penalties. So, in jiu-jitsu, sometimes you have to like cook the guy, and maybe you're trying to isolate an arm and the guy's pulling the arm back and you're trying to isolate the arm. And it's like, you're working, you are working and progressing, but it just doesn't look like much. So I think the penalties were a little excessive, but the UFC is going to learn from this. They're going to take notes, and I think that this rule set they came up with tonight can evolve into a really good rule set.
Did you hear any of the commentary talking about you? I know we talked about that as well. Like, I don't know how much you could hear out there.
Yeah, not so much this time. I don't remember exactly hearing certain things like I did last time, but maybe a little bit, like when we were kind of smacking each other a little bit and collar tying each other. I heard a couple little things, but nothing really stood out to me this time.
And, we just saw you do a face-off with Gordon. He was in here before and had a lot of nice things to say about you, seemed interested in the match. Where do you think this is going to go from here?
Yeah, hopefully. It just depends. I don't know if he updated you guys on his injury, but I think that's the only factor that we're waiting on to see when he feels like he's ready to start a training camp. And then I'm sure from there it's going to be 6 to 8 weeks, and then we'll be able to do it.
I know in MMA, sometimes fighters will sit out because they don't want to risk a loss before they get that big fight. It's not quite the same in jiu-jitsu. Maybe it is. I don't know. It doesn't seem as dramatic. How long would you be willing to wait for him? Or is it not a factor? You can just go and compete a run.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where my head was at even when he dropped out this time. That was something that we talked about, potentially waiting to not really risk losing that big match, especially the position that I'm in now. And, I'm 30 years old. I feel like I'm in my prime now, but if I were to lose the shot at Gordon, who knows if I would be able to get it again, right? So it's kind of like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Yeah, if he's going to be ready in March or April, then I'm fine with sitting out and waiting. I don't have to, some guys in jiu-jitsu, they compete every weekend. I like to do a real 8-week training camp just because, I did come from MMA. So I like doing that full training camp, and yeah, we'll see. It depends really on when he's ready. If it's not going to be for 6, 7, 8 months, then I might think about doing another competition. But if it's going to be 3 or 4, then I can wait.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey Mason, why has a match between you and Gordon never happened? I mean, I feel like it should have happened at least twice by now, but you guys have just always not crossed paths.
Yeah. So in the beginning, it was mainly due to the fact that I was competing on Submission Underground. I was the champion of Submission Underground on Fight Pass. He was the absolute champion of Who's Number One on Flow Grappling, and I just don't think we ever could come to terms really on a rule set, or I know he had mentioned that Submission Underground offered him a match against me on Submission Underground, and the money was less than what Flow was paying him. Maybe Flow was offering me less than what Submission Underground was paying. So it was just little things, either on the pay or the rule set. I'm not sure every detail, but mostly to do with the pay and the rule set. And finally, UFC came and paid both of us what we wanted, came up with a rule set that was kind of a little bit more down the middle, and it was something that we were both comfortable doing. So yeah, hopefully we can do it again through UFC Fight Pass.
Was there anybody tonight that impressed you if you were able to watch any of the matches?
Man, I didn't really get to see too many. I was watching Victor Hugo and Big Dan. That was a great match. Those guys both dug deep. They were both gassed. It was just a war. Two big boys that just went to war. So that was a fun match. But besides that, I didn't really get to see too many of them.
And then finally, are you doing ADCC next year?
Yeah, hopefully. I'm in a position right now where I'd like to not have to do the trials, especially if I have, say, an opportunity against Gordon or like a big money super fight. So I'd like to not have to do the trials. The head organizer, Mo, has mentioned my name as far as the potential invites. So, of course, if I get invited, I'd like to compete again. But I'd like to ideally not have to do the trials again. I won the trials twice, so hopefully that's enough to get me the invite for the third time.
Cool. Congrats.
Thank you.
I know you said you were leery of sort of taking the other matchup because you wanted to keep that Gordon Ryan matchup there. Did you get some assurances when they were trying to find you another opponent that matchup would still happen? Should you stick around and still help out this event?
Yeah, I mean it's just tough because how do you not give the match to the guy that would beat me, right? It really wouldn't make sense. So, like, let's say Haizam hit some crazy flying armbar on me tonight. It's hard to not argue that, you know, there would be more hype behind a match now with Haizam and Gordon than me and Gordon. So, our sport is a little different where, you know, guys win and lose a lot more often than, say, like boxing or MMA. But with that being said, yeah, I do think it would be tough to really push myself to get the fight again if I were to take a loss.
And I know we were talking a little bit earlier about the rule changes. You did well here before at the last invitation when they had the Eddie Bravo overtime. You went in there tonight. I know you said there's going to be some learning curves to tonight. Which rule set did you like better between the two?
I do really like ADCC rules and EBI rules. I'm actually undefeated in the EBI rule set. But with that being said, I do understand that some people don't like the EBI rule set. And the reason why is because it gives someone that's not as good the opportunity to beat someone better than them, because all they have to do is just stall and not get submitted during the regulation and then be better than them at the overtime. So I understand why a lot of people complain about the EBI rule set. But with that being said, I do like that rule set. I like this rule set as well. It was a little complicated, but I think they'll figure it out and fine tune it. And then hopefully it'll be a little bit less confusing on the next show.
And I know, speaking of the show, and as the show goes on, you've been involved in grappling jiu-jitsu for a long time. What are you seeing, how much of a spotlight this is putting on the sport? Are you hearing from more people out of it that you maybe didn't hear before that are now seeing it because of the eyeballs of the UFC and putting all this weight behind it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. At the same time, we have ADCC blowing up bigger than it's ever been. You know, they're going to do the next ADCC at the T-Mobile Arena. And then we have the UFC putting on grappling events. And, I mean, I had people texting me screenshots that there was a picture of me in the App Store, you know. So between ADCC blowing up and UFC getting involved in grappling, it's a really good time to be a professional grappler. And, man, it's a snowball effect right now. And right now we're in the middle of it, and it's just going to keep going straight up.
Awesome. Congrats on the win tonight.
Thank you. Cool. Thank you, guys.
Nicky Rod, how you
Sup?
feeling?
Yeah, feeling good, feeling great, feeling achieved, accomplished, but there's still more work to be done.
2-1 over Yuri. I guess, how does that feel first?
Yuri's a phenomenal opponent. He's very weathered in the sport of jiu-jitsu, multiple-time ADCC world champion, and the reigning ADCC absolute champion, which is an amazing accomplishment. And I was able to go out there and pretty much sweep him at will, pass his guard multiple times, and score on him. And a great camp due to my B Team Jiu-Jitsu teammates. We put the work together, and we got an awesome result.
Was there a specific game plan against Yuri?
The game plan's always the same, to win in a dominant fashion, and if need be, knock their dicks in the dirt, and that's kind of what it did today.
It looked like you were complaining to the referee that he was kind of like holding, like he was kind of like basically stalling on you.
Yeah, I mean, there was a situation like, I pulled guard and got a -1 early on in the match, and that was due because I was trying to work, but he was controlling a single leg, which was preventing me from heisting or something like that. So, it kind of looked like I was just sitting on my butt when in reality I was working. And then there was a few other situations where I was on top passing guard, and Yuri just kind of grabbed the single leg and was proceeding just to hold the single leg and trying to maintain that submissive position as opposed to working towards a better position. But it's just the game we're in. You got to constantly adjust your strategy towards different rule sets, and this is no different.
What do you think of the new rule set?
Yeah, I think the new rule set is great. It's a ADCC hybrid rule set. In the world of jiu-jitsu, there's so many rule sets that you have to get accustomed to and constantly adjust. So, I'm acclimated to adjusting, and the rule set worked towards my favor. It leads towards continuous pressure, continuous movement, and I have a very offensive game, so the rule set definitely benefits my style.
What is your favorite rule set?
My favorite rule set is, I think I like a submission-only rule set. The problem is that if there's no submission, it goes to the judge's decision, and judge's decision can it can be a bit flaky sometimes. So I think honestly I like EBI rule set, because if there's no submission in 10 minutes, at least you have a definite winner and definite loser in EBI overtime. Although you get some guys that just stall until EBI overtime, which that can be some issues. But at least with the EBI style format, you have numbers don't lie. Either you escape early or you get submitted, and you have a definite winner, a definite loser. So, but again, like I said, I'm accustomed to adjusting. So whether it's 50-minute sub only or an ADCC hybrid rule set like this or an EBI rule set, I will come out victorious.
You called out Gordon again. We asked Gordon back here, kind of just scoffed it off, played it off, didn't really want to comment. Says that you guys just always keep his name in your mouth for clicks and likes.
Well, I mean, clicks and likes. I mean, I'm giving him an offer. I'm betting $50,000 of my own good hard-earned money to say that I'm better than you. And I mean, 100K winner take all. Gordon's kind of guy. He used to do bet matches. On his come up, he was betting guys $10,000 and $20,000 to say that he beat them. And that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm taking the same concept. He was betting guys back in the day. Now I'm doing it on a bigger scale in front of millions of people in UFC Fight Pass. I'm putting up 50K of my own hard-earned money. He puts up 50K, 100K winner take all. I mean, I don't see no downside to it besides him losing, So unless he's scared, unless he knows that he's going to lose the match, that's the only reason that he wouldn't accept it.
Do you think he's avoiding you?
I know that he's avoiding me. He does not want a match against Nicky Rod, right? His favorite rule set is let's do a no time limit match so we can get somebody to quit or to concede. It's like, bro, this isn't an NBA game. We don't have 4 quarters like a football. You know what I mean? Listen, let's make it 10-minute, 20-minute match, whatever. But let's have a match and let's get it done.
Was there anybody on the card that you saw that impressed you?
Yeah, when I was out there competing, I was looking down upon myself. I was like, that guy's doing great.
Makes sense. And then finally, what's next for you? Is there anybody other than Gordon that you want to compete against next?
Well, Gordon's number one. If he doesn't accept, I will gladly put a whooping upon his teammate, Nicholas Marigali. So I would like that as number 2. If Gordon doesn't want to accept my match, then I'll take his teammate. Obviously Nicky's good. He beat Penna via submission. So it's only right that I go out there and put a whooping on them.
You doing ADCC next year?
ADCC, absolutely. I'll be there winning in a dominant fashion as I did tonight.
Congrats.
Thank you.
I just have one question. Sorry. We're mostly MMA people, so we don't follow grappling as closely. I'm just curious what the reputation of UFC Fight Pass Invitational has within the jiu-jitsu community. Where does it kind of rank amongst the legitimate promotions?
In my opinion, UFC Fight Pass is only one stage behind ADCC World Championship, which is considered our Olympics. It's just ADCC has a reputation for breeding the best grapplers, and honestly, UFC Fight Pass is right there. You're bringing out the absolute best grapplers in the world to go against each other to figure out who's number one. It's a different rule set. It's a humongous audience. I know that UFC being involved heavily in grappling as they are is doing wonders for the sport. It's bringing in new mixed martial arts fans, putting eyes on jiu-jitsu, and honestly, I cannot thank UFC enough. So I truly appreciate you guys having this awesome event over and over, and I appreciate all the time you guys spend growing our sport.
Nicholas, how you feeling?
Feeling good, feeling good. Yeah. So I knew how the match would go, and just another day.
I guess how did you feel about your performance?
I felt great. So this week we pushed. I didn't train that hard this week, so we were more like filling up the body throughout this event, and I felt great every day. So I normally train so hard, like my daily basis. So when I get some rest, I always like feel amazing, and so I knew I would perform really well because when I flew to here in Vegas, so all the sessions I had, I was just like feeling everything connecting. Mentally, I was in the right place, and would just be a matter of time to perform at this stage and then display some incredible jiu-jitsu level, and that was what I did tonight.
I guess just how does a win over Felipe again, like, what does that do for you? And you know, it was a pretty dominant win. I know that there was some kind of funny business during the match. How'd you feel about that?
To be honest, I'm in a stage of my career where I'm not thinking about my opponents anymore. I'm more looking for my legacy. So what I'm building is different than everybody else, and I'm going to be the greatest hybrid jiu-jitsu athlete ever. That is what I'm looking for. And my last performance, they spoke by themselves, so I'm dominating people like 100% of the time. This year, I didn't have one single athlete displaying one single offensive movement on me, so I dominated all the fights from the first second to the end. Even the fights that I didn't finish was only 2, unfortunately. I had 14 fights and I got 12 submissions against the best guys in both worlds, Gi and Nogi. So beat Pena was, of course, some huge deal. We have this rivalry since forever, since 2018. And we tried fight all the times, but he got injured, I got injured, and had COVID and had different like complications that didn't allow the match to happen. So definitely it was great, but I'm more looking to my legacy right now than one specific athlete. So what I want to build is different. So be it one guy is not changing my life anymore, but the picture I have for myself for the next 10 years, definitely Pena add a lot. So it's my legacy, the most important thing right now.
I'm just wondering, you mentioned the rivalry that's been going on for a long time. Do you feel like the rivalry is done, or do you feel like it's just heating up and you guys are going to keep seeing each other?
I mean, for me, it's done. So I tap him twice, what he wants. Like, fight on the streets right now, so we have nothing else to do. I beat him the gi. I rear naked choke. No, I Ezekiel him the gi, so it's a choke from the back. So I did the same no gi, but right now rear naked choke with an arm trap, which is way more impressive. So for sure we're gonna fight again. Pena has a huge brand. He's big in this sport, so for sure people will ask again for this fight. But personally, for me, rivalry is when we still having a business to. So there's no business anymore. So like I'm way better than him. I proved gi and no gi. Maybe he can keep the rivalry for himself, but for me it's just like I'm on a different page right now. So just change the books and life goes on.
What did you think of the new rule set?
This rule set was amazing. Like EBI is the worst rule set ever, but this rule set is closer to what I believe is the perfect rule set. Jiu-Jitsu, it's all about submissions, and when you bring to the mat so many points, so many penalties, so many like advantages, so it just makes jiu-jitsu confusing. Of course, that is the way organizations have to push athletes to compete, but it's definitely not the best way to encourage jiu-jitsu to be spoken on the stage. So when I'm competing, I'm always looking to submissions. Of course, there are other athletes that also do the same, but just make 15 minutes mats, like no points. Just like, of course, having some like we had today, some great referees just pushing action, like making calls and like giving penalties. It's pretty important as well. But the less we have points involved, and the more we have the true jiu-jitsu, like domination, submissions. So that is what we're looking for. So I love this rule set, by the way. So I think 10 minutes is a good time. Overtime is probably, if you're facing someone that's pretty tough, you're gonna go there, because when athletes, they are playing in the highest level possible, it's really difficult. You display something very, like display dominance, like I'm doing, but I'm one of the greatest ever, so it's just different. But this rule set was amazing. I love it. I would love to compete again this rule set, to be honest.
We talked a little bit about GSP yesterday. I'm wondering if you could hear any of his commentary while you were competing.
No, I didn't. I didn't hear anything. When I'm competing, I'm pretty much in the zone, so I can hear my coach, John. Gordon was there as well. Gordon yells a lot, so it's a little annoying, to be honest. John never says anything, which I like, so just by having him around is something that brings me peace. But I don't hear anybody else, like, to be honest. It's just like, I know what is the game plan, I know what I should do out there, and I trust my skills, I trust on the work I do in the gym, so I trust my coach. So it's just about time to get what I want, like control my opponent and get my submission.
And I believe it was today that you posted something on Instagram about how you don't want to be a role model, or you don't want to be someone's role model, or can you maybe elaborate on that? What did you mean by that?
Yeah, so I'm from Gi Jiu-Jitsu. I'm from Brazil, I'm Brazilian. And I always had people telling me what to do and how to act. And it drove me crazy during my entire life. So I was always like going back and forth in between, like, what should I do and who I am. I lost my mind a little bit, so I thought about retire. I actually did. And when I moved to US and I joined the team New Wave, so I just felt great to work. I felt peace, and I have that judgments are not there. And right now I'm just being who I am, and I don't give a fuck about what people think, because people, they don't give a fuck about you, but they just want to drag you down because they're losers, and they're never going to accept that you are at the top. So you have to be a role model for losers, not for champions. So I kind of lost my way for trusting those people, but right now I'm just doing my things, and if you like me, fine. If you don't like me, also fine. So I have my friends, I have my family on my side, I have money to do whatever I fucking want. So being a role model is the most bullshit thing ever this society created. So yeah, so I don't give a fuck, and I'm just being who I am.
So I take it you don't have a role model then, if you think they're bullshit?
Yes, of course it's bullshit, because you are also not your role model. Like, you're always changing as a human being. Like, year by year you change. So you're always expecting to be someone, you're always acting to be someone, but you never are your real role model. You're always thinking about something, and then you think about people, and then you think about actions, and then you think about future. Like, just stop thinking, just be who you are. And like, you can conquer happiness, you can conquer peace by being who you are. Like, life is too tough to try, like, control yourself and like design and project a beautiful future. Like, we never know what's gonna happen, and I just release pressure. I'm just living my life. I'm saying what I want, I'm dressing the way I want, I'm training the way I want, I'm doing things I love, and whatever people say is just irrelevant for me. So I'm still have, if I open my phone right now, I just beat the best guys in the world, gi and no gi. I had 14 fights, 12 submissions, 85% submission rate, fighting the best guys, the best of the best. Not guys that have good brand, like good media. It's like, who wins more, gi, give me. Who wins more, no gi, okay, give me. And I just beat them. If I open my phone right now, a lot of experts will tell me, oh, you should do this, you should do that, you should say this. Just shut the fuck your mouth. You know shit about life, you never conquer anything, just do not take my time. Like, you're a piece of shit. Like, you're never gonna say, Elon Musk is not texting me, oh, you should do, no, he's not. Like, he's on his house doing his shit, and I'm doing my shit. And my friends can tell me something about life. My family can tell me something about life because they live my life. Not a piece of garbage like from Instagram. Oh, you should do this, that. Just shut the fuck. If I'm not your role model, just move on. Unfollow. There's a great button on Instagram, unfollow, and then you go to a different page. Like, I'm not gonna be your role model. I'm just being who I am. That's it.
Last question for me. I don't know if you called someone out. We didn't hear your post-fight, but is there somebody that you want to fight next?
Sorry. Not really. So I have, I don't know who I want to face. I beat everybody at the top. I don't know. Just rest right now. I have business that I want to do, different than jiu-jitsu right now. So I have no idea at all who I want to face next year.
You giggled when you said business. Is that something you can share?
No, it's private. It's private. I have my hobbies that I like to keep very active.
Thank you.
Nicky Rod called you out in his post-fight interview.
Who?
Nicky Rod.
Who?
Are you doing 80
No, again,
cc?
can you like so just give him some help. What this guy that he said the name, what did he win? So because I can't you can remind me, tell me his titles, and then I can like because right now I'm just like
He doesn't have the titles that you have, but he won
no,
tonight.
what he won. Maybe I can like you can bring me back to the topic because I don't know, like so people can call me out for sure, but I'm in a position where who makes the calls? It's me. So just take the line, ask for some money, and you know, so I can give you a chance. But this guy, I don't even know who he is, so he's not on my list. Sorry.
It's understandable. And then finally for me, are you doing ADCC next year?
Yes, I really want HCC. So my first performance was pretty shit, to be honest. So I got second place open class and third place on my weight division. I had 5 months training no gi, so it's understandable. I couldn't perform better than that. I really want to go back and perform in the level I know I'm capable of. So I have almost 2 years training no gi. I feel more comfortable. I feel closer to my like peace to work. So I feel peace when I'm fighting no gi right now. So not as close as not as much peace as I feel when I'm competing the gi, but kind of close. So I think having 4 or 5 more fights until HCC, so I can get there in a very good shape and in a very good state of mind to get my double gold.
Congrats.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.